Everyone, and welcome to the Finding Case Law and Legal Documents webinar. My name is Taylor Lee, and I am the liaison librarian to the School of Public Policy and Administration here at Walden University. This session is intended for students from all program levels and all subject areas who are interested in legal research or have some need for legal documents. You may need to get legal documents for the purposes of a course assignment, or you may need to do this for your self-directed research. The databases that we see today, combined with some of the government websites that are accessible via the public policy research homepage, and also the ones we mentioned in the government webinar, are going to allow you to find relevant legal information on your topic. That being said, let's look at our objectives for today. Firstly, we are going to distinguish between primary and secondary sources, specifically within the context of the legal world, because this idea of primary and secondary sources is a bit malleable depending on which field you're talking about. Next, we're going to discuss some of the more common secondary source types, and these can be really good resources to look at to get some background information. Then we're going to go into these two databases that we're going to look at today. The first one being Nexus Uni, the second one being LegalTrack. We're going to talk about how to search for both primary and secondary sources in Nexus Uni, because that offers us the ability to do that. And in LegalTrack, on the other hand, we're going to just see how to use that database to find secondary sources. Okay, so whenever a student comes to me and wants some help finding legal documents on their topic, I typically recommend that they start their search with secondary sources. Why would I suggest this? Well, a lot of times the text of laws themselves or other legal documents can be seemingly incomprehensible to those without a legal background, and this could lead to some potential frustration. And I just want to briefly show you this slide, which is an excerpt from a law that I got on congress.gov. But this just gives you a bit of a taste of what you might encounter once you start going into some of these legal documents and government documents. They're very dense, they're very jargon laden. On the other hand, if you start with a secondary source, so for example, a law review article on your topic, that's going to contain more natural language than actual official policies or laws. And they're also going to contain extensive references to primary sources. So we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here. Let's talk about what's the difference between primary and secondary sources. Well, it's pretty simple. Primary sources in the context of legal research are the laws themselves or the policies themselves. Concretely, that's going to mean statutes, regulations, and court opinions. Secondary materials are going to be everything else. So any other content about those laws or policies. So interpretations of them or descriptions of them. And some examples of that would be legal encyclopedias, law reviews, like I just mentioned, and treatises. One thing I always tell students before we go to that slide is that, especially in the initial stages of your search process, for basic background information, common internet sources like Wikipedia and Google can be very helpful for guiding you to the more relevant secondary and ultimately primary sources for your topic. Now, it's important to realize that these kinds of sources are not scholarly in nature, and therefore they are not going to be appropriate to include in your research or cite in your research, but they will provide you with some very useful contextual information and help guide your future searches. So they're very valuable as general discovery tools. So for example, let me just show you what I mean by that. I'm going to come over here. So this is the Wikipedia entry for the Freedom of Information Act. This is a US federal law. And you can see in this entry, they started off with the name of the law and then the abbreviation. And then you have this kind of weird looking citation, or a citation you might not be familiar with. That's in two parts. It is one citation, but it's in two parts. The first part is the title, which title of the US code this is coming from. And then the second one is the section of the US code where this particular policy is found. And if you click on this, it's going to take you directly to the Legal Information Institute at Cornell Law School, which is an amazing resource for open access to legal documents. So that just goes to show that you can access legitimate authoritative resources from non-authoritative resources like Wikipedia, but still great for background and contextual information as well. In the process of doing these kinds of very basic internet searches, you might also find some good leads for relevant government websites for your topic. So if you did a search for Freedom of Information Act, you might ultimately end up on the Department of State's website. And finally, you'll likely identify additional search terms to use in the process of searching very broadly like this as well. So for example, we already know that this law is called the Freedom of Information Act, but we might also see this abbreviation and say, hey, that might be helpful to include when we go into the databases. All right. So like I said, I often recommend that students start with secondary resources. So books, handbooks, encyclopedias on legal topics. And your best bets for finding these kinds of resources at Walden are going to be these three databases that I've linked here. Given that we don't have a formal law school, we don't have as many resources for legal research as some other institutions. But these ones are surprisingly helpful. Gale Virtual Reference Library does have a law collection. And so actually, I think I have that open. Yeah, so if you come into that database, you can click on this law collection, and it's basically just going to show you the Gale Encyclopedia of American Law, which is a really great reference resource for the American legal system in general. And then I also wanted to show you an example of what you might see if you go into our database, Sage Knowledge. And this is a page, or this is a screenshot from a search I did for age discrimination. So as you can see, you'll get this type of entry that'll have a table of contents up here, or you can choose to view this as an ebook. You can even have it read to you if you would like to do that. And then there's going to be other helpful links at the beginning of the entry that help you navigate within it, because some of them can be quite long. Let's talk about law reviews and journals. So law reviews usually focus on new or emerging areas of law or legal research. So they may be more current than some of the encyclopedias that we were just talking about. Many law schools publish at least one, sometimes several law reviews. A law review article, similar to the text of a law itself, is a very specific thing. Even though they contain more natural language than an actual policy, they're still going to be fairly dry and dense and lots of legal jargon. So that's just something to be prepared for. The way law reviews are typically formatted in a law review or a legal journal there will be a section or there'll be individual articles called notes, and those tend to be a bit shorter, and then there will be comments or articles. I'm sorry, you'll either see notes or comments. They're sometimes used interchangeably, and those are going to be written by law students, and those tend to be shorter. And then there will be articles, and those will be written by law professors, judges, or other higher legal practitioners. A lot of the time, articles, since they are so long, will have extensive table of contents for the article itself to help you find what you're looking for without having to read the entire thing. And articles in general are valued for their analysis of a particular legal topic. And we're talking about accessing them for the purposes of our own research. But many times these kinds of secondary sources play a significant role in the actual legal process, the development of laws, because they often critique and inform future modifications to current law, and they're often cited as support for amendments and repeals. So they can be really instrumental in shaping US policy. Now, these law reviews and legal journals occupy kind of a gray area regarding peer review. Some will have that designation, some will not, but it doesn't neatly align with the concept of peer review as it relates to other scholarly journals. It's a bit complicated, but the designation of peer review in the context of law reviews does not necessarily dictate whether or not that content is appropriate to include in your research. So it's a bit different than some of the content you might access through some of our other databases. Okay. Treatises. Okay, so treatises are another kind of secondary resource you might want to make use of. It's a really good kind of resource to start with if you lack familiarity of legal policy on a given issue and you're just generally curious. So these treatises, they can be book length, but they're often much more succinct, and they are usually intelligible summaries of legal policy on a given topic. So they will vary in terms of how much detail they provide. Some are designed for legal practitioners, others are designed for law students, and yet others are designed for laypersons like us. So they will typically provide more information than a legal encyclopedia entry, such as they might summarize the landmarked cases in that particular area and link to other helpful information. So some examples of treatises you might come across are real estate law in New York State or drug policy in the United States. They will have fairly broad, or they tend to have fairly broad titles like that. Treatises are scholarly and they are appropriate to include in your research. You will be able to get to some of these treatises in Nexus Uni, which we'll go into soon. But the ones I've found in that database tend to be pretty dense. So I've linked here this Georgetown treatise finder. And this is a great way to sort of browse for treatises on various legal topics, and it's going to suggest multiple resources to you based on the topic. And if you need a portion, if it's a book, you can request a portion of that through the document delivery service that we have. So I'll just pop over just to show you what this page looks like. Oops, did not mean to do that. One moment. Okay, so this is what that Georgetown Law Library site looks like. As you can see, it has a long list of topics in legal research. And when you click on one, I'm going to go into banking law. It will contain a lot of resources to help you get that good background information. Okay. So before we go into the databases, let's briefly talk about how we search for legal materials. This is going to mirror the kinds of ways that we search for government documents that I cover in another webinar. We're either going to use a citation, and a legal citation is a very specific thing, and it's not going to look like the APA citations you might be used to, or MLA. It's completely different. If you have the citation, that's always great, but a lot of times we don't. And when we don't, we rely on keyword searching, or if we have a popular name or the common name of a particular policy or law, we can use that. And then aside from that, we're just going to be browsing by general topic or keyword. Where do we look for legal materials? Really in two different places, but those two different places contain multitudes of places within them. One is government websites, and I've just listed some of the more frequently utilized and helpful ones here, but there are hundreds of government websites, and I do go into more detail on these in a separate government documents webinar. And then in terms of our collections here at Walden, we are going to be using mainly these two databases, LegalTrack and Nexus Uni, although you might find some other relevant information in Academic Search Complete, Business Source Complete, and then finally Google Scholar does have a case law search, which is pretty handy. So with that being said, I'm going to navigate to Nexus Uni and take a look at this. So this is what the Nexus Uni homepage looks like. Nexus Uni is the replacement of LexisNexis Academic, which some of you may have used in years past. It is a database for legal and business information primarily. It will contain all three kinds of laws, so statutory laws, regulatory laws, and case law, as well as those secondary sources like law reviews and journals, case notes and briefs, news articles, company information, etc. So when you come to Nexus Uni, the first thing I just want to make you aware of is that you can come up here to this menu in the top left, and you can notice that there are multiple subject areas listed in this menu. If you click on one of them, I'm going to click on criminal science, for example. It's just going to give you a slightly more tailored experience as you're searching in Nexus Uni. So you can set this as your home page, and it'll show you key topics right here that are hyperlinked. You can scroll down. It'll show you recent news articles in criminal justice. You can search over here, recent Supreme Court decisions on criminal justice, featured publications, landmark Supreme Court cases, recent law review articles, etc., etc. So you do have that option when you come into Nexus Uni. I'm just going to leave ours set to the general page for today's demonstration. So you'll notice this big search bar in the middle of Nexus Uni's homepage, and you can use this search bar to search using natural language or Boolean operators. And so because of this, this search bar is much more intuitive than some of our other database search boxes. So it will behave much more like Google than it will criminal justice database, for example. So for example, this question we might have, how has Georgia implemented recycling programs? I could type that whole question in there, including the question mark, and I'm going to get similar results to what I would get if I typed Georgia and recycling and policy, which is an example of a Boolean phrase. You can also, we'll talk a bit about this in a second. We're gonna, if you come over here, you can see it says all Nexus Uni, and that's indicating how it's going to search. We're gonna leave that alone for now. We're gonna first search for a citation. So when and if you do have a citation, let's see if it pulls it up. It might not. When you do have the citation of a particular document you want to access, you can simply copy and paste it into this main search bar. So I'm going to do that and click search, and we're going to get 5 results from this search. And for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure why it does this, but this first result is just kind of a summary. It doesn't, it's not the actual text of the policy itself. You can see if you go down to result number 2, it starts saying part 1 of 4 and then part 2 of 4. So this is where we'll actually get into the official document. I'm going to click on the title here, which is hyperlink, to go into the document. And when we do that, usually it will say something like, notice you are viewing a very large document. There will be some disclaimer like that, or at least that's what I've seen in the past. Well, once my computer catches up here. For some reason, I'm not quite sure why, but Nexus Uni always runs slow for me. So I do have backup slides if this is not going to cooperate. Looks like it's slowly, here we go. Okay, so this is what I was referring to. It has this notice that says you're viewing a very large document. And so the first thing I would point out is this tool you have up here that says search within search document. And so we could enter in any other key terms that we might have in mind, and it's going to show us where that term appears in this very large document. So for example, I could type the term media in here. Let's go ahead and do that. You know what? I think I'm just going to bypass this because it's being very slow. Sorry about this. Okay, so we've gotten through there. This is where we are. Okay, I actually don't have a screenshot of where, but when you do that, when you search within the document, it will show you where that document appears. It'll highlight it for you. Now, the next thing that you can do is search by common name, so Freedom of Information Act. And when you do that, you want to make sure that you wrap that phrase in quotation marks. And what that does is it tells the database that you want to see that exact phrase and not results with any of the individual words. So when you do that, so this is what your search page, your results page will look like when we search for Freedom of Information Act. You're going to get over 10,000 results. And for some reason, it defaults to this category of news. So these are going to be over 10,000 results of news articles. You're going to use, similar to other databases, all of the limiting tools are going to be over here on the left-hand side. So the first thing I would probably recommend is limiting to a particular category. So you can limit to cases. So you're going to see court cases, statutes and legislation. You can limit to law reviews and journals, and also regulations as well. So let me see here. All right, let's see if it has recovered. Here we go. Sorry. This is what I was trying to show you. It finally loaded, but you can see all the different places the word media turns up here. I'm going to go back to the home page. Now you can also, so we searched previously in all of Nexus Uni, and that's why when we searched for Freedom of Information Act, we were seeing so many results. But you can also change this. So you can change this to search in specific ways. So if this used to be called categories, now it's called content collection, but you can limit here to news or law reviews and journals, one of the several categories I just mentioned. And so what we're gonna do, and before we do, practice areas and topics down here. This is a really great place to go to if you're just casually browsing for documents on a particular field within legal research. You can check multiple of these and then say search. But we are going to limit this next search to statutes and legislation. And I'm going to search for this concept of contract violation. And this is good. So when I do that, and when you search in Nexus Uni, you will see recommended documents that pop up down here. So sometimes you can just look at what it is suggesting and say that looks good, and you can click on it and go straight to it. But we are going to search contract violation within statutes and legislation. And from this search, we get 601 results. So this is a lot, so we're probably going to want to narrow our results a bit. And you can do that by looking over here again. You can search within the results right here. And this is a really helpful feature. This works the same way that that search within document tool works when you're actually in the document, but this is working with all of the results that we're currently seeing. So if we wanted to narrow this search to only those results that dealt in some way with schools, we could type schools in there, press enter, and now it's going to bump us all the way down to 357, which is much more manageable. And then you can continue to refine your search based on jurisdiction is often helpful, or the sources. All right, so let me, what we've been doing so far has just been from the homepage, and this is the basic search in Nexus Uni, but they also have an advanced search. So I'm going to go in there just to show you what it looks like. When you come into the advanced search, you'll see this select a specific content type option right here. And I'm not sure if they still have it set up this way, but it used to give you more content type options than the previous options we were seeing. But there are different ways to search, so you can search all of these terms or any of these terms. There's some great tips over here on the right-hand side about Boolean operators. And down here, there's some good frequently asked questions. So these are just good things to take a look at if you come back and have questions later. One moment. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to say select a specific content type, and then I'm going to scroll down here to law reviews and journals. So we're going to see how to access some of those secondary materials. Then I'm into this big search bar. I'm going to type in mandatory reporting and elder abuse. And so this is a Boolean phrase, which it'll also recognize. So I'm just going to press enter. And from this search, we're going to get 262 results. So you start looking through your results, and the titles are going to look pretty unfamiliar, at least if you don't have a background in the legal world. However, you can see where these are coming from by looking at the information underneath it. So this is coming from the Elder Law Journal. This is coming from the Elder Law Journal again. A lot of Elder Law Journal articles right here. This one's coming from Health and Biomedical Law Society. So that's how you really determine where these results are coming from. If you go into one of these results, it will highlight your search terms wherever they do appear. We can always search within the document again. And another good feature is this export citation link right here. So you can easily click on that and grab the citation for this particular document, which is great because if you're like me, you don't immediately know how to cite legal documents. So you can copy and paste that wherever you need to. All right. So there are lots of ways to search in Nexus Uni. Another way to search is this get a doc assistance tool. And if you come here, this is helpful. If you do have the citation, you can simply search by citation here, select a content type and a jurisdiction. Also, if you're looking for a particular court case, you can enter either party name in that court case and find it that way. And then finally, if you do have a docket number, you can enter it here, although that's less common. And finally, there is this guided search tool down here. This is particularly helpful for finding case law on a particular subject. So I'm going to select cases, and then it will ask you for your jurisdiction, so either federal or state. If you select state, it'll give you a search box. And when you begin typing in the state, it'll give you options. I'm going to say Georgia, and then I'll do pollution. And it'll ask for a date range. I'm going to say 2015 to the present. And I'm going to search. And so this is going to give us 12 cases. Let's see here. And one thing you can do if you ever need to, if you run a search that you want to save for later, you can link to this page. If you click this actions menu and then come down here to link this page, this is going to give you a permalink, which allows you to get back here whenever you want to. You can also save some of these. Let me see here. I'm trying to remember where. You have all of these options up here. Here we go. Here are the folders. So you will have to register for an account in Nexus Uni, which is free to do. It just requires a name and an email. And then you can set up personalized folders. You can also email this search to yourself. You can download it, save it to Google Drive, etc., etc. All right, in the interest of time, there are other things we could talk about related to Nexus Uni, but I'm going to go to legal track so we have time to answer your questions at the end. Okay, so this is Legal Track's homepage. Legal Track contains secondary sources, so articles about laws, not the actual laws themselves. And in my personal opinion, this database is it's better to use as a complement to Nexus Uni than simply as your only legal database. It'll contain everything that Nexus Uni does. Nexus Uni will contain more. So that being said, it is helpful. When you come into the homepage, it's good to take a look at this subject guide search. I'm going to open that up here. So this is the subject guide search is kind of equivalent to the thesaurus tool that you may have used in other databases. You can enter in terms that you are using when you search for literature or for legal documents. So I'm typing in drug abuse here. And you can just scroll down and view all of the pertinent categories related to drug abuse. And if you look over here, it'll tell you how many results you'll get if you search or if you click on these hyperlinked subject terms. It'll show you all of the results for those categories. You can click on these subdivision menus or related subjects, and it'll give you even more options of related areas. Another thing you can do is utilize this publication search. So if you know the exact publication you're looking for, so a specific legal journal, you can use this. So for example, you might know that you want to look at content from Harvard Law Review, and you could do that. You could look that up right here. Harvard Law Review, it's gonna pop up right there. You can select whether you want to limit to full text or peer reviewed. I always recommend unchecking the full text box just so we see everything out there. Again, this question of peer review when it comes to law journals is it's a bit murky. I'm going to go ahead and check it. Okay, so it brings up the publication there, and then you can click on that to view all of the available issues of that publication. I'm going to navigate back to the home page here. They have this feature called the Topic Finder, which is very it's pretty helpful, and it's aesthetically pleasing to boot. I'm going to do a search here for pollution, and when you do that, you'll see this lovely visual display of everything, all the different categories related to pollution. So you can use this to think about other issues related to your topic. It'll also help you build a good set of search terms or keywords to use either in this database or elsewhere. You can visualize this information in tile form or in wheel form. and you can zoom in or out on any of the particular tiles. Sorry. You can click on one of them to see relevant results. So for more results, you'll get more results for the larger tiles, less results for smaller tiles, etc. And then finally, you have an advanced search feature in LegalTrack as well. This looks very similar to the standard advanced search page that you will see in other databases. I'm going to do a search here for pollution. And when I do that, similar to other databases, it will suggest other subject terms to me, subject terms or keywords that I might want to consider. And then finally, there are some other helpful features down here in the more options. You can limit by date range, specific document types. Again, if you have a publication title you're looking for specifically, you can do that here. And then over here, this is what I was thinking of, this more menu over here. We have a dictionary, especially helpful for legal research, since there are a lot of terms that we might not be familiar with. You can view your search history, so you can get back to any searches that you've run in the past. And then finally, just like the other databases, you have the option to set up personalized folders to save the content that you find when you're looking in LegalTrack. So I know that wasn't very in-depth on LegalTrack. Let me get back to my but like I said, I would recommend starting with Nexus Uni and some of those government websites, and then using LegalTrack as a supplement to them. So in general, I would just say keep checking the databases, keep checking those government websites. Laws are constantly changing. Statutes are amended, regulations are revised, case law can be repealed or overruled. So you can keep track of these changes by visiting some of the government websites discussed in the government documents webinar. But it will require time and diligence on your part. So if you have any questions about anything we covered in this webinar, you can contact us at the library, either through the Ask a Librarian feature in the top right-hand corner of the library's homepage, or through this email that I've posted at the bottom of this slide. This is an email account I set up specifically for students and faculty in the School of Public Policy and Administration to be able to contact me directly. But if you're watching this webinar and have a question about any of this content, feel free to utilize that email. If you are a doctoral level student, you can also make a research appointment with one of our liaison librarians, and that is a way that you can sit down with a librarian and get some personalized attention and instruction on using some of our library resources. And finally, I know that we only touch the surface of these databases and how you go about looking for case law and legal documents. So if you have any questions about your own research, types of documents you might need to access, feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to help you track those down. We also have a guide that I've linked right here called the Find Court Cases and Legal Research Guide. That'll kind of summarize some of the things that we have talked about today. But again, don't be shy to reach out if we can be of service. So with that, I will just say thank you so much for attending today. And now I will stop the recording and take any questions you may have.